Hi, I'm Quincy Rose.
Hi, I'm Augie Duke.
And we're from my new film, The Narcissists, which is out for your watching pleasure. And this is our interview with Mr. Media.
Pity the poor indie filmmaker. I'm sitting around for 3 years with nothing better to do than to be anxious for Quincy Rose's follow-up to the brilliantly titled and wackadoodle Friends, Effing Friends, Effing Friends, while he's out hustling a budget, writing, directing, editing, and submitting his latest creation, The Narcissists, to film festivals and seeking a distribution deal. Where does the time go? The good news is that, thanks to President Trump, at least today we can all spell narcissists. So that's one mountain climb for the young filmmaker, who's the son of the late legendary comedy writer Mickey Rose, one-time partner of Woody Allen. And Quincy is Woody's godson, which might explain more than a few influences in this particular film, such as the long, loving camera shots of New York City, the sharp, biting conversation between the four principals, and the naming of the character of Letty. Letty Aronson, after all, is Woody's sister's name. Joining me today are Quincy Rose, who stars in the film as Oliver, and one of his co-stars, Augie Duke, who plays Letty. Quincy Rose, welcome back to Mr. Media, and Augie Duke, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thanks for having us, Bob.
Very happy to do so. Quincy, what the hell took so long? I mean, where have you been? What have you been doing since 2016, when last we saw you?
Well, actually, we shot this in 2016 and at the end of 2016, and probably sometime around the time we first spoke. And it did the festival type of situation through 17 and then the beginning of 18. And then there was like a potential plan to put it out a certain way and see if that could happen and give it a kind of fighting chance to do it that way. And after it didn't go that way, then I just came to the conclusion that it's the right time to seek distribution. We reached out to Gravitas, who put out Gravitas Ventures, I should say, who put out Friends, Effing Friends, Effing Friends, which you mentioned, and they loved the film, and here we are now. So it took a little longer than I would have thought, or that I would have planned, I should say. And but we're very excited that it's coming out, that it's out by the time everybody's watching this or listening. So you can run to your wherever you VOD movies from, and, Apple or Amazon, all of the platforms, and check out The Narcissists, plural.
Finally, Quincy cast me in a film.
Yeah. And I needed time to edit around all of Augie's stuff,
Sure. Really, busy.
And that, yeah.
Did I understand you had to edit around Augie's four-letter words? Is that the
Yeah,
problem?
she just she said really misogynistic stuff throughout the whole thing, and I said, Augie, there's a whole movement going on now, and you're pushing everybody back 100 years.
I must.
She would say stuff like, I don't know why we have rights to vote, and just weird things. I don't know. But Bob, I want to say real quickly, because you mentioned that my father was Woody's partner, and he also wrote for a talk show that was called Late Night with Johnny Carson, right? Or The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And on that show, he met a young writer who came after him to that show named Michael Berry. And Michael Berry, who's an amazing, legendary writer and a comedy writer. He wrote for Carson. He wrote for Letterman for 20 years. I mean, he was head writers and all that stuff. Yeah, he wrote the original Bad Boys movie. He wrote, what's that really funny
Amazon Women on the Moon?
Amazon Women on the Moon. Yeah, he wrote Amazon Women on the Moon. Hysterical movie.
Great movie.
And that's Augie's stepfather. And that's how my family came to know Augie's family. And her mother, Frederica Duke, a.k.a. Freddie, is just hilarious and a filmmaker.
Who swears more than both of us combined.
You'd actually, even with swearing aloud, you'd have trouble with her on the thing. Every other word. But we love Freddie, and she's also a filmmaker. And actually, Augie just made her first short, not to swing too far off where we're starting, but she just made her first short film recently as a director. And she's, prior to that, acted in tons and tons of films and TV shows and stuff. So
Stop.
We were just
Quincy's
so
also
excited to work
patient
together.
On top of it, it's a family affair, really. It's
Yeah, but just so excited to have worked with Augie was just, it was such a pleasure.
together.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. See, and I just mentioned your dad in passing, figuring, sometimes, people don't want to make the connections, but I didn't know it was going to unfold into such a huge family operation.
Yeah, and actually, Marshall Brickman was Woody's partner. Wrote
Right.
Annie Hall and Manhattan. He actually is who hired my father on the Tonight Show when he was the head writer, Marshall Brickman, and he hired my father, and eventually Michael Berry got hired, and I think the story goes that my dad saw him in some closet of an office that nobody was really giving him much love.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, where Michael was, and Mike Berry, and my dad was like, "No, come on, let's get you in a proper space or share my space or whatever it was." And they were fast friends from that point on, and very close right up until the time of my dad's passing. And Michael and Freddie and Augie, they're like really family, So it's but interestingly enough, Augie, who I was aware existed in the world, I didn't actually know her until about 6.5 years ago when my father got sick. And then the family started commingling a little bit more. And
we hung out for the first time at your dad's funeral, I believe.
That was, well, a little before that.
A little before that, sick. But then it was very, it's like a dark comedy.
Actually, there's a photograph. I'll probably have to email it to you, Bob, but there's a photograph I like to show people and say it's of Augie and myself, and we are crushing it in this photo. Like
red carpet ready.
Yeah, red carpet ready and just gorgeous. And that's not easy for me. For her, it's natural. But so I show people this photo and I like to say, so look, oh my God. They go, that's beautiful. Look at Augie's gorgeous. You look gorgeous. Where were you going? A premiere? And I go, no, that's at my dad's funeral.
Oh, no.
I don't know how this photo got taken. It's clearly a selfie. I was in a suit, so I looked nice. People don't know what you dress up for. I'm telling you, we looked amazing.
Also,
and ironically,
happy.
And looked happy. That's the weird part,
It's all really disturbing.
Yeah,
anyway.
I think I was just happy to be with a friend, at the terrible situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of love in that room, actually, and that's the weird thing about funerals and loss is you not only go through the sad and all the the devastation, but you also have a reminder of like how much everybody loved and supported that person and cares about you, and that's reinforced in those moments, hopefully. And anyway, so moving on.
No, that's very nice. And
I love Quincy.
Actually, as you made as you started, I was thinking, do either of you guys know Mark Malkoff?
I'm not always great with names, so for me it's not ringing a bell, but maybe I'm familiar.
That's all right. He hosts the Carson Podcast, and his mission in life, which it's interesting because he was too young. I don't think he ever saw the Tonight Show with Carson as as an adult. But his mission in life is to interview everyone who ever had any connection to the show on his podcast. You guys should, and it probably work as a way to promote the Narcissists. You guys should reach out to Mark and make the connection, to Mike and to Mickey, and you'd be great guests on that show to talk about the dads.
Michael Berry should be on that show.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is he still? I'm sorry, I didn't know he was still.
Her stepbrother is still alive. Yeah, alive and well.
His stepdad's still kicking. No, he looks great. He's doing really good. He's retired. He's got time to do these things now.
He retired when Letterman retired because he did the whole 20 years, with Letterman at both
But
sides.
he still wakes up at 4 a.m. in the morning and writes still.
He's so funny and prolific and just awesome. And I used to go to the Carson Show set as a kid, and I used to it was so amazing. So yeah, there's lots to talk about there.
Wow.
Lots to talk about, yeah.
Well, look,
cool.
Check that out. We can figure
Maybe
that
he
out.
was on
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right. So let's come back to what's the name of this film
Narcissists.
again? The Narcissists, of course. So Quincy, I want to read the official description of the film, if you don't mind, so people know kind of what we're talking about and put this in context. A couple in Brooklyn has to choose whether or not to stay together and renew their lease or call it quits after 5 years. Having spent 2 weeks apart to decide, Oliver, that would be our friend Quincy here, and Cassie, who is not here. That would be Jessica DiGiovanni.
She's amazing.
They each spend the day with their respective best friend, meandering New York City, trying to figure out their next move. The thing I noticed that was missing, and this always worries me, in that sometimes I wonder, did I completely misunderstand or miss something in the movie? But the thing that is not mentioned there is that it's also kind of a film within a film.
Oh, I wonder which thing you're reading, because that is in one of the descriptions that we send out, and I'm not sure if it's not in the one I sent you, or did I send you the? Anyway,
I read. This was on the website, actually.
Yeah. So the thing is, I was trying not to give too much away, and when you're breaking down these kind of descriptives of films, it's hard to like include everything, but then explain it all, the whole thing. So we do have an official one that went out to people. I think I've sent it to you, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's not on the website one, and I should adjust that. And that's a big part of it, the film within the film, and almost a film within a film within a film. And the characters are commenting on themselves, really, right, but by playing in a film that they're talking about, and dealing with influences, and like you mentioned, the Woody influence and all that stuff. But it's really, I really should have just called my character Quincy, because I was really trying to play on this meta sort of story of like a character talking about his own work through his own work in its work, and then being able to, kind of destroy your own work and critique yourself as well as the critics of yourself, and etc. So, yeah, but at the same time, you don't want to give too much away in those descriptives too. So, yeah, it's a tricky one to do a trailer for, which I think we did a decent little fun teaser. But again, even the trailer can't show all the elements, and it's a tough little kind of wire to balance on. But hopefully it doesn't discourage people from watching it.
It's also a challenging film in its own right.
Right.
How we did it is like no other. It was almost like, to me, it was like a live play or live show outside, how we kind of did it. Quincy, you should explain how we shot this film. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah. And as you pointed out, Jessica DiGiovanni played Cassie, my character's opposite girlfriend, and Zachary Tejan, who he was in my first film, Miles to Go, but he's so funny. He plays Max. He plays I like making him say the worst stuff because he just says it so naturally, and he's such a sweet guy that it's just funny coming out of him. And so I countered his character with Augie's character, Letty, to also be on the woman's side. So it's basically these two people in a relationship trying to decide what they're going to do next, but they're each hanging out with their best friend, like you said. And those two friends are not necessarily always helpful, but ultimately they are,
Very provocative in their own ways.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And I set out, so after doing my first couple of films, I really wanted to shoot a film in New York, and I'm all about New York City films. I grew up on them, not only by Woody, but by endless filmmakers, Scorsese or Nicole Holofcener or Noah Baumbach, all these different films that I grew up as a kid, plus into my later years and growing up as an adult. And the thing I love about New York, as a lot of people have figured out, is that anywhere you point the camera, it's beautiful. So the backdrop is interesting, in other words. And in LA, that's not necessarily the case. It's not that I'm not going to go to like destroying LA or giving all my opinions on LA, but it is harder to just set up a nice, beautiful frame, just pointing and shooting. And what I knew was that I wanted to shoot a movie with total creative control and freedom. And that would require shooting it for very little money. And if you're shooting it for little money, then it requires shooting it in very little time. And if you're going to do that, then there has to be a way that everybody knows all of their lines, and it's very few setups and a smaller crew, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it ended up being, I put together a really great little team of 4 actors, the 3 actors we mentioned, including Augie and myself, and then 4 people on the camera side of things, which my cinematographer, Jason Krangle, our sound person, Rob Ellenberg, and an assistant director, Jason Kalikia, and myself again. So it's 4 and 4, but I'm one of the 4 on each side of the teams. And the reason that was important was to be able to just move around the city like a moving circus kind of thing, a roaming circus, and be able to just park our gear on one corner, knock out a scene, move on to another corner, knock out a scene. And so at some point I decided, it'd be great is if there was no cuts in any of the takes, which would require a single shot for each take. And then in doing that, it's just coming up with the frame you like, and it helps the movie flow, smoother. It also makes it feel like a play, like Augie was pointing out. You have to memorize the material like a play, which
a lot of dialogue.
A lot of dialogue.
A lot of dialogue.
I love dialogue. That's my thing, and I really love dialogue that's kind of as lifelike as possible, but maintaining some sort of entertaining and relatable value while moving a story forward. So it's a little bit of a tricky thread to a needle to thread, but it's when it works, it's great, and when it flubs, it's tricky. But and then being in New York, even though I scouted every location, if we got to a place and I set up the camera and we start realizing, hey, sound is no good, or this is no good, or whatever, we could just pick up, walk a block, and shoot somewhere else around the corner, and it was equally as beautiful, or maybe even more so, depending on what was happening. And all the extras were really just people in the city, and they're crossing our paths, and they're walking their dogs, and a lot of them were on their phones. So the other interesting thing is, you always hear like, oh, the city's an equal character in the film, but I really believe in this particular film, New York City is really the lead, and we're the supporting characters to it. Agreed. And that's kind of something I was trying to explore, which is honestly, even as important as the dialogue is to me, and I haven't shut up since you've asked me this question, so you can tell that I like talking.
Actually, just to be clear, Augie asked the question.
Oh, Augie asked the question. She got a word in. Now we'll keep her quiet for the rest. And no, and I want to hear Augie's point on all this. But as important as the dialogue is to me, it's also some of the scenes are short and quick and snippy and quick and funny and witty and sharp, and some of them are 5-6 minute scenes where I want an audience to sort of drift off into their own thoughts like I do when I watch a movie, and just kind of get lost in the city or the sounds of the city, because those are all real sounds. We didn't add in fire engines passing by or a car horn honking just to seem like we're in a city. We're in one of the biggest cities in the world. So it's it was just like it was actually like a time capsule too, of like 2016 to this era in life right now. Because if you go and watch it, if you don't even pay attention to us talking, if you could watch it on mute, you're going to see people all walking and looking at their phone, texting. A lot of zombies. I kept getting concerned. Are they going to look into the camera and ruin the shot? Because they had no idea. They're walking up the street 50 yards, and they just walk right by like this. And I'm like, wow, amazing. Or people just walking in front. Nobody cares. We literally had one incident where somebody got annoyed that we were like kind of in the middle of a sidewalk. And instead of like waiting or just going around us, they really wanted to make a point of going through us, and it turned into a little bit of a verbal altercation. But
was I shooting?
You weren't there. No, that was interesting. I shot it. I designed it so that we could shoot the women's scenes first and get into the swing of things with me behind the camera, so that I can help guide my team, so that when I was in front of the camera, they would already have a handle on what I'm trying to do. And then that also allowed us to just keep it cheaper and knock out the 2 actors at a time, couple days. And we shot it in 5 days with principal photography, meaning all the dialogue and the actors. And then 2 half days with my DP and myself running around the city at all points and just shooting all the beautiful shots of the city. And the last thing I'll say about that is just, and we can, unless you have more questions about that specifically, but Jason Krangle, my cinematographer I mentioned, he does a lot of documentary work. And what was great about picking him, besides that we totally jive and we've known each other for years and years and worked together years ago on my first short film, and I've kept in touch, and he's a wonderful cinematographer. That's all great. He also, because of the documentary stuff, we weren't using any lighting. It was all natural lighting, and we were on the go, and he's used to that. So it was really helpful to have somebody who wasn't going to be phased. Like, a lot of cinematographers they're so specifically cinematographers, and they're so concerned with the look, which they should be. That's their job. But to a point where if you tell them, there's no lights at all. I don't know, maybe one light. We got to have one light. I need this. And I was like, no lights. And he had it didn't faze him at all, so that was great. And to get actors like Augie Duke and Jessica DiGiovanni to come in, and then on my side of things with Zach, you need people who can really just absorb the dialogue, make it their own, and feel natural and just really charming and funny and interesting to watch. And I think we got that. And I hope we did. And at least with the women, we captured that. So, yeah.
I feel better now. I'm convinced I definitely saw the same film that you made, so I feel better about that, because these were a lot of the things that I picked up and was going to ask you about as we went along, and a lot of it, that was good. Augie, I have to ask you. It seemed to me, viewing the film, that the days that you and Jessica shot were colder than the days that Quincy and Zach shot.
That's really, you think? Also, I'm tiny and I'm always cold.
So I don't think that's true, because
that actually is true. Is it true? I don't know.
When we showed up for day one, it was freezing.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be fall, but it was so cold, and everybody that walks by the camera is, because they're not controlled extras, they were also wearing colder outfits, to be warmer. And then all of a sudden, 2 days later, when we're shooting Zach and my scenes, it was warmer, so people are walking around in shorts.
How unfair is that? How the chicks get the cold days and the dudes get the hot days? Like, what's up with that?
It should have been the other way around.
Yeah, but on the other hand, we had to wear sweaters still, pretending it's as cold as it's supposed to be. So I'm walking around like a jerk, sweating.
Now, Zach though, his jacket was wide open. This is what I noticed. That Zach's jacket is wide open pretty much throughout the whole shoot. But Augie and Jessica are bundled up in these heavy kind of winter coats. And that's what made me think,
Although Augie has that scene where you walk down the street and your little red top is showing, where you're underneath, you're like, you were wearing like a jean jacket with the fur inside?
Sweaty armpits, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Very, very sexy. You want to know the truth here?
Please.
Well, is that I almost didn't do this film.
I thought you were going to say this interview. I was like, Jesus.
What a cunt! When he presented me the script and what we were going to do, it's a very challenging thing, because I had to memorize, I think it was like 30 pages a day.
Oh my.
And we had 17 and a half each day. So, because the script is 75 pages, but you had to have half of the script memorized.
Can I just lie and say it's 30 for
30 a day? Go for it.
Anyways, 30 a day.
50 a day.
I've never done that.
Yeah.
Also, it was like we had like 7 pages of a one take, wide shot, no close-ups. And I'm so used to, I mainly just do film and TV. So for me, I was like, oh God, this is like a play. How am I going to memorize this many pages in one day and nail it? But I was up for the challenge.
Were there rehearsal days in a film like this?
We had Skype. We did this, what we're doing right now. We did a lot of that. I live in LA, and Jessica just moved to LA, but she was in New York at the time, so we did a lot of Skype stuff to get into the characters. But
Yeah. We did a few together as like just to make sure I wanted everybody to be themselves and do what they were going to do to make it as natural as possible. That's one of the things I was hoping to achieve with this film. Of course, there always has to be a little guidance in that kind of thing, because sometimes if it's too natural, then it just falls into, why are we watching, like that kind of thing. But they were great. They just ran with it, and they'd never met each other until those Skype sessions. And then after I was on like one or two of them, then I let them just dictate their own rehearsal schedule. So yeah, as far as that goes, Augie would have to.
Oh yeah, that's right. We did a little bit of that. It feels like forever, but yeah, we did rehearsals before we shot a couple times in New York City, because I flew in a couple days before we shot it. But yeah, I mean, there's no close-ups. It's all wide shots of us walking and talking with real people on the streets. So it was almost like you forget that you're doing a film sometimes, which I think is cool. And then it has a lot to do with your voice in this film too, because sometimes you don't even see us. We're so far away, but you hear our voices. So that was also interesting. I'm like, God, are people going to hate my voice? Are they going to be cringe? Is it cringeworthy? Like, oh God, I hope Letty's voice is like decent. Like, I had to worry about the weirdest things, which I'm not, I wasn't worried about my face or how I looked, or because there was no makeup, no hair, we did it all ourselves, which I think is kind of cool. But yeah, so I don't know.
Augie, I got to ask, so when it's just you and Jessica on these Skype sessions rehearsing, any conversation about
sex?
Quincy?
No, sorry.
No, Quincy, he writes really well for women, or Quincy doesn't really get women, or, tell me about,
No,
I'll just.
No, you'll be happy about this. He's good with women. He also has a sister, so I think that helps.
Yeah.
Amazing sister. Yeah. No, I didn't have any questions. I thought the dialogue was amazing.
Thank you.
And each character, you're welcome. And each
it's nice. Thank you.
It's super different in their own ways.
Right.
And selfishly, narcissistically enough, I liked Letty the most. So I was happy to play her. She was my favorite character in the film.
Well, I before I was sure that we were going to talk, I wrote down there's this one interaction between Letty and Cassie. And I'll just remind people that Augie here plays Letty. And so at one point, Letty is pushing Cassie a little too hard about sex. And Cassie says, "Can we talk about anything else?" To which you, as Letty, reply, "Do you think your mom has ever shaved her vagina?" Yeah. Wow, what a showstopper that one was. I just was like, whoa, that's something I don't want to think about. Thanks a lot.
There's a lot of dialogue like that throughout the film. I think Letty says some really... Coming from a mother that is a lot like that, it wasn't really shocking to me. And I think Quincy kind of knew that this dialogue for me was kind of home base.
Well, no, and that's true because I needed somebody who was comfortable using dialogue that's like that, because if you put that in certain people's mouths, when they say it, it sounds forced and it sounds like they don't ever talk like that. And Augie, that's the only way she talks. She answers the phone. She's like, "Mom's vagina, blah, blah, blah." Like,
vagina, blah,
welcome to the shave factory, and who knows what they're doing over at that house. It's a freak show, honestly. But
Jewish freak show.
Augie, I want to get your number because I want to call later and have you answer Mom's vagina.
Mom's vagina. No,
she actually uses a clam phone. It's just a little.
No. Oh my God! No,
from the Flintstones.
See, he went there. See, he's worse than all of us.
Well, his line, right? Augie, had you seen Friends effing Friends effing Friends?
Yeah, I have Friends effing Friends effing Friends in it. I have some friends in it. And I've seen all of Quincy's films. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, all of his films are different too in their own right, with lots of gnarly dialogue in its own great way. But yeah, I loved Friends. It's very different from The Narcissist, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so you knew Jillian.
I've known Jillian. Yeah, Jillian and I did a movie called The Badger Game together, which is like a thriller, suspense, sort of dark comedy film years ago. She's an incredible actress. Yeah, so we knew each other prior to that.
Small world. Yeah,
it is. LA and the acting world is just very small. It really is.
It's true.
It is very true.
I should ask, and I apologize. It just occurred to me I didn't get into this. Augie, why don't you tell people a little bit about some of the things you've been in? Because I should have been prepared for that, and I'm afraid I'm not.
I'm a little bit in this and a little bit in that. No, gosh, I don't know.
A lot of stuff going on.
It's been. I also worked with Quincy's girlfriend, Angelica Zolo.
Yes.
Her first feature called "Trauma is a Time Machine," which is coming. Yeah, it's quite the opposite as well as The Narcissist. It's a drama. It's about.
We can't say when it's coming out because they haven't announced yet, but it is going to be coming out in the relative near future, and they'll make their own announcements. But I'm so excited it's really a quite a film. It's an art house, like really beautifully told film about a young woman who's been raped by her boyfriend and is dealing with the aftermath trauma of that, and also some stuff from her childhood. And Augie plays the lead in it, and it's a raw performance. It's black and white. It's in your face. It's her for a lot of the film is like just her, like going through her like psychosis and her own, trauma. And it's really, not only am I just blown away by my girlfriend Angelica Zola, who wrote and directed it and produced it, but Augie's performance, it's heartbreaking and it's in a beautiful way, and just so proud of Augie's work. She's really fun to watch and interesting and just so talented, and she's got a lot of great stuff going on. And it's always uncomfortable touting your own stuff, so I'll say that. And also she's got she's on a show called Messiah that's coming to Netflix soon, starring Michelle Monaghan and co-starring Augie Duke. But you got a couple episodes, and that's recurring, I'll call that. And She's on all types of stuff. You got like 10 movies.
I got this film that's out right now doing the festival run called Burning Kentucky, which is
winning all kinds of awards.
Another woman film director, and it's an amazing film. Yeah, it's been nice. I'm humbled by it all. I'm thankful for it. I love working, so I'm very thankful right now for all the stuff coming out and stuff.
Nice. I apologize that I was not prepared better for that.
Why? No, I don't. I hate talking about myself, so it's perfect. Quincy's here, so he makes me look cool. So thank you for that.
Not a problem. And it's you know what? I was just going to give away something in the movie. I'm not going to do it. I caught myself there, so I'm not going to do that. I'll discuss this afterward. I'll tell you what I was going to say.
Excellent.
So, Quincy, did you and Zach know each other?
So I've known Zach for 13, 14 years now, and we're like the best of friends. And I just love Zach, and I love making him say horrible things, just like I love making Augie say horrible things. And it's fun to do because you get to say a lot of things that you would maybe want to say, but you don't want to be the one to say it. So you have other characters say it, and you can, write. That's one of the fun things about writing is you can actually explore, not only like make people say terrible things that you maybe think but wouldn't say, but you can also have your own argument with yourself. Like when you're writing, you pick a subject, and if you have character on either side of the fence of that debate, then you really get to debate it with yourself, and it kind of opens your own ideas up. But I've known Zach for a very long time, as I mentioned. We're very close. He's a wonderful actor. He's started acting as a child, and then had some breaks, and then went back to it, and then had a nice period of acting, and then took some breaks, and he's been doing other things, and then went back to acting. And just so glad it worked out that he was in this. He was in my first film, Miles to Go, and he also plays a similar character in the sense of relating to my character as I played Miles in that one, and the similar kind of dynamic between the two, like just clearly best friends, and where one person thinks they're kind of in a safer lane, and his friend Zach's character's playing that lane where he kind of like feels better about himself because he's not this way. But then at the same time, it's ultimately that person who, makes him as great as he is, or could be, I should say, makes him a better person, and is a great person just in their own right, just very funny and out there. But Zach's wonderful, and I think he has such a brilliant performance in this, and he really, the fun thing about the Augie and the Zach characters is they really help a movie like this because it is all dialogue and visual with the city. But it really moves anytime a scene is a little, not dragging, but like the Jessica's character, Cassie, and my character, Oliver, we're going through the thing, that's dictating the drama in the story. So we're kind of like, just kind of, brewing over like what's happening in our lives and having this existential problem. And they're just like, supposedly there to help us, but they're saying the most outlandish things, and really a lot of it about themselves, which is not exactly helping maybe, but it really helps the scene, so it's just, and they're so charming when they do it. You almost can't be mad at them, just watching. But yeah.
Augie as Letty and Zach as Max provide the conflict in the film.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
Like
yeah.
That. Yeah.
And
we
that,
never got to do any scenes together, but
see, that's what I was trying not to say. Oh.
Well, I cut that one scene, right? Big,
I mean, it's a conversation piece between two best friends. So maybe they meet at the end. Who knows? You'll have to watch it.
Well, and so let me since we
good recovery.
Since we sort of went into that, I want to go back. Augie, there was something else I wanted to ask you about. So with all these setups that are generally across the street from where you are, I think, right? Most of these you're shooting.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like the long shots are across the street in a lot of cases.
I thought you meant like from where I live. I was like,
no. That's a separate camera that Quincy and I have set up that you're not supposed to know about. No, in this case. Now, in this case, what I'm wondering is, so when the camera is kind of distant like that, and you're having your scenes with Jessica, is it less intrusive? Does it seem more natural because there isn't a camera in your face? There's not a director like 2 feet away from you. You're just carrying on.
Like I said, I was more worried about my tone and my voice than my acting. which is so bizarre. So it was almost like I felt like I was becoming like this voiceover actor in it as well. I also forgot that they were rolling sometimes. And I just was like, oh, which is kind of cool.
That's the point of that, yeah.
Yeah, that was the point, right? I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. They're like, you forget, like you weren't worried about like I said, all the narcissistic things that you're worried about as an actor, really. Like you weren't. You're like, oh yeah, the camera's over there. You can do whatever you want. You can pick your nose. No, you're not gonna see. And I may have picked my nose. Do you hear that? Sorry, there's like a moving...
I do. Is that my earphones?
No, that's me and some truck parking. It's not. It just stopped. I think it's FedEx or...
How appropriate that we have natural sound.
Yeah,
that's right.
like the movie.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Quincy, were there any times that Jessica or Augie or Zach objected to something that you had written for them to say?
No, there was nothing like that. I was in the scripted part, which I don't want to give away everything, but right. All of those scenes are totally scripted, and they're pretty much word for word off the book. But I did give them leeway of like, if you're not comfortable saying this word and you're more comfortable saying this word, which means the same thing basically, or gets the same point across, great. It's not about, that. I wanted it to be as natural as possible. But no, I mean, I also known Jessica for a long time now, and they know me. We're friends, and everybody was just on board to play and to be these fun characters that are not really anything like them, but also have a lot of them to help fill out the realness of that character. No, I didn't have any objection, and it was just a lot of fun to play. And that whole thing you were just talking about with Augie about, is it unusual not having a camera right near you and you become unaware of the whole idea that you're maybe even filming? That's the whole purpose of this kind of thing, is to really disarm an actor to where they're not acting anymore, and they're not thinking like, oh, I have to do this or that. I wouldn't even cut if everybody really screwed up or dropped every line or couldn't get back on track. Yes, you have to cut. But there'd be times where it was a longer take and somebody would I could tell we're getting a little tired or something, and they're just kind of drifting off. But that's what the actor themselves, the person playing the actor, was doing anyway, which you would do if you'd spent the whole day with your friend and you're having these long conversations and you're just kind of going about and you don't really know what the point of your day is other than to be with your friend. And, so it just played into the naturality of it. Is that a real word? I don't know. But the natural nature of, or it added to the verisimilitude of the story. So that's really, it was just a plus. And I think the funny thing is, when people aren't used to that from a director now, speaking as a director, there was a couple moments, Augie, where like we were running a 5-minute scene and 3 minutes into it, they're doing a great job. And then I hear, cause I can't even see them sometimes. And then Augie's like, oh, cut. There's just people everywhere. And I was like, what are you doing? Why are you cutting? That's the whole purpose. I know.
Because I feel
see you. I know we can't see you. That's the whole point. And then like she's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, don't cut. It was like a whole thing. But
see, I'm telling you. We did do a little bit of improv now that I think about it, because there was something in my teeth once, I think. Oh, yeah. And we did like, is there something in my teeth? And we kept it, that kind of thing.
And the interview stuff with the characters, the different characters.
Right. Yeah. Now we're giving it away, but yeah.
Well, I'm trying to hook them. I'm trying to hook them.
Well, so the shooting style of this with the long shots, so many long shots, is so different than, and I'm going a little on memory, Friends effing Friends, which is a lot of close-ups, a lot of bedroom stuff, a lot of
handheld, all handheld.
Yeah, dinner table, and that was. I mean, it's very different in terms of that.
Well, it's totally different. It's complete opposite, actually. Yeah. And the thing is, when you write a story and then you decide how to tell it, that's what's dictating what you're deciding in the camera department. Now, I didn't have to shoot this film from the whole distance. Like, if we wanted to, it's not like I couldn't have shot this as a walk and talk kind of steady cam thing or tracking or whatever. But my choice to have no cuts in it really lined me up to have minimal camera movement. And then if you're doing a longer scene, then you have to figure out, well, how do you have a scene that's 5 minutes long that's not just somebody standing in front of you guys for 5 minutes, because it has to be interesting, right? You want it to be more interesting than just that, unless it's a most riveting argument or something's happening. So then it was like, well, look, why don't we have you further away and you'll come toward the camera, and then when you pass the camera, we'll follow you, or we won't, or whatever it is, and then we'll time it so that the conversation ends by the time the camera's not capturing you anymore. But so that was all dictated by the type of film I was shooting, and it lent itself directly to that format. But also, as we touched upon influences before, and this film being a meta kind of story of me as a filmmaker personally in my real life, as well as somebody who makes independent micro-budget features, or has to this point made several. And the whole thing is, when you get critiqued, you're compared to people. And then when you have a lineage, you're compared to them even more. And so I wanted to kind of deal with that directly by putting in very specific shots that were used and made famous in certain streets by Woody specifically, and or certain films of his. And, so like there's a scene where Zach and I are walking down a block, and it's a long shot take, and it's the same street that in Annie Hall, Woody's walking down with Tony Roberts. Or there's another scene from a shot that he did with Kirstie Alley in Deconstructing Harry on the Upper West Side, where Letty and Cassie are first introduced. They're standing in front of a wall that you can see in that film. And then there's, some color tone decisions and voiceover decisions and comments that are directly connected to other films. But, originally I was going to call the film Influences, and because I was going to play with all of my influences, because as an artist, it becomes hard. If you're too close to your influence, then you're stealing and you're not doing anything original, or you think you are. This is the critique of it. You wish you were, or you're trying to be, but you're really just kind of making, as a filmmaker, you're just making love letters to all the films that you loved before, or the city that you're telling it in, or the people that you're trying to tell their story. And it was an important film for me to make, because it was about like hitting your influences head on, dealing with your critiques of yourself as well as outside people critiquing head on, and letting go of it all, and just, letting it be what it is. And so this kind of shooting style really lent itself to being able to approach those dynamics. And it allows for a whole scene to take place. So,
I wasn't going to ask you this, but now I am, since you mentioned the Deconstructing Harry and the similarities. This is your third film, I think?
Third feature, yeah.
Third feature. Have you ever shown your films to Woody?
I have. Well, I know he watched Miles to Go. I'd never sent him Friends Having Friends. I like that film fine. It ended up being fine, but it didn't come together exactly how I should not be saying this, but it didn't come together exactly how I wanted it to come together. And so I stand behind it, and it's all my fault. It's nobody else's fault. And but it's just not one I plug all the time. Like if I need to send something out, I would up till now I would have sent out Miles to Go. But now I'd probably send out The Narcissist, because even though it's shot much quicker and it's a whole different style of different things, I think altogether it's good to show all the different styles. But and they all have something that shows. But so I don't know if he's watched The Narcissist. I did send it to him not too long ago, so I'll follow up when he's busy. He's filming his newest film. But he did call me when my dad was ill. It was around when he watched Miles to Go. And he called me and he said, so I watched Miles to Go, and I just, I got to tell you, it's really not a bad movie. And I thought that was the greatest compliment you could ever get from Woody. I mean, first of all, he doesn't think any of his films are good.
Right.
And there's arguably 20 of his films are some of the 20 best films in the world, let alone another 20 that come in second place, and so I knew that was a compliment, a huge compliment, and it was really great. I wanted to be able to put it on a cover or something, but I don't think I could have. And but it was really nice that he watched it and gave that compliment. He also said that it reminded him of some of what he used to do in some of his earlier days. And I said, well, you and Dad were the biggest influence, and it's just his films really worked as my film school, and many people like Noah Baumbach and Nicole Holofcener and different people who have come after. I mean, you can tell they're highly influenced by his films, and not only the next generation, but his contemporaries were too. I mean, he changed the way films were made, and he'd probably argue with me. I've said this before, but he would probably deny that. But it's true that prior to Annie Hall, that was not a genre like that. The way that worked, it was still coming off of the 60s types of films, and they were a little bit more drawn out and very character based, but they weren't quick, witty, like like just the way he did it, where you have a cameraman who's a phenomenal artist telling a very funny, comic genius's story, but in the realm of a real relationship. And what they captured there, and then from there on, I'm talking about him and Gordon Willis at that point, but that and Manhattan, and I mean even Interiors and these different films that they were doing, and Husbands and Wives eventually with Carlo De Palma, and these kind of films. I think he also did Hannah and Her Sisters with him, but it's just a whole different world of quality and just brilliance. And so it's good to have that to live up to, and to hear him say to me, wow, it reminds me of my earlier stuff. That just lets me know, like, yeah, I'm in the early stages and I'm working my way up. And I think each film has improved. And now we're at Narcissists, and I'm moving forward. With my next films, they're going to be, I'm finally got a real, veteran producer, Rana Joy Glickman, who's wonderful, who coincidentally Augie already knew, and she's friends with her family. It's like such a small world. And, with our next films moving forward, we're really pulling up to the next step up, this big step up, and really trying to
big budget this time.
Well, bigger budget than like a real legitimate budget where you can get the proper cameras and crews and all the tools you need to tell that kind of story, and the actors that are known, so that when you're supporting it, with different people we're all coming up and trying to make our name in the world, and so that we can all help. You need people who are known so that the story can get out there further. But I only mention that because these films have really been a way to cut your teeth, and you got to learn, you got to put in the time, and there's no way to learn directing other than to direct. There's no way to learn acting other than to act. There's no way to learn how to be on a film or in a film other than to be on set in a film, because as much as you can learn in a schoolroom, as we all know, it's not practical application. And everything you learn goes out the window. Every plan you have goes out the window the second you get into a real set. It's like, oh yeah, I planned it to be this way, but this room is so different, or the lighting's different, or the sound's wrong, or the actor doesn't work in that thing. So now it's, it's all solving problems. And, so these films have really been in that kind of, for lack of a better example, the 10,000 hours, to put in and really learn, so that when you get that opportunity, or when I get that opportunity, I won't be overwhelmed by all of the, decisions that need to be made, and who you're working with, and et cetera, and who you're collaborating with. And so it's really been awesome. And these films have been great, and getting Woody's kind of, like, keep it up, kid, kind of thing was really important to me. And my dad was just the most important one was my dad's. Mm-hmm. He only lived through Miles to Go. Some say that.
Do you want to rephrase that? He only lived through Miles to Go. Yeah. That doesn't sound quite right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Some people say that it killed him, but I disagree. No, he only lived long enough to see Miles to Go come to completion. And wow, when he came out of the theater, we saw it at this very awesome theater in Hollywood and Los Angeles, California, called the ArcLight, in this great theater where I always loved seeing movies, and I always wished I would see my own film there. And lo and behold, my first feature debuted there, and it was such an incredible experience. And I was nervous, so I waited outside for the last part of the film, and there was like a couple technical difficulties going on, so it was really frustrating. But anyway, didn't seem to bother other people. And when the doors opened and my dad saw me, he just made a beeline right for me with such energy and smile. And I mean, he was actually like shaking. He was so excited for me. And he came up to me and made such a funny comment, and then and with just big hug, and was really like impressed and blown away. And, it's weird because he's done such bigger things that when he was telling, I don't know how you did that and this, that, I'm like, what are you talking about? You guys made Bananas. You made Take the Money and Run. You made your own film. You made Carson shows. You made these. What are you talking about? But he was really, really impressed. And that was the only cosign I ever needed to continue doing what I was doing. It doesn't really matter to me what anybody else says. It's always nice when somebody you admire, like Woody, or, it'd be a dream come true if Noah Baumbach would see a film of mine and say, wow, I really love that. That was great. And, that kind of things. These people whose films really make a difference to you, but, or whose art really makes a difference, but my father's was really the only one I needed, and I got it just luckily. So yeah. And Augie's. I need Augie's affirmation, but that's it.
You did a good job.
My father and Augie and Angelica's too. This is like the scene in The Jerk. That's all I need I just need my dad's, and Augie and Angelica's, and my neighbors.
Dog to come in here, and Pip. Hold on, come here, Pip. My dog keeps on. She's like growling at me because she's mad that I haven't played with her. So she's like, "Mom." She's giving me this face like you've never seen. A face so angry, like you guys would laugh so hard. Come here. Do you want to be?
Right.
Come here.
No, Pip.
No. She wants to play so bad. She's like, "Give me the
You're
ball."
in the middle of an interview right now.
Wow.
Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot about that.
That's all right. That's all right. See, that's how
the
Paul
Narcissist
Michael
was.
Glaser made his little on-camera mistake that I won't mention again. Augie, did I just mention it? Augie, we started. You mentioned, or maybe Quincy had mentioned the short film that you had done, but I don't know if we ever got the title of it and how people might be able to see it if it's available somewhere.
I just did it last weekend. I just shot my first film. I directed something,
and it comes out next week in all. No, I'm kidding.
And then it's done. Yeah, I edited it. It's all finished. No,
what's it called? What's it called?
My mom wrote it. It's about her trying her first cigarette in the 70s.
Oh.
So I guess it's a period piece. It's 5 minutes. Angelica Zolo is going to sing in it. His Quincy's girlfriend is she owes me a song very soon. It's I just wanted to play with the idea of directing something. I've been acting for so long. And actually, it's all my mother was like, you should direct something and see if you like it. And I did it, and it was fun. I'm really good with kids. I know that sounds weird, but I am. And it was all little girls in it. It's a cast of 3 little ladies.
Oh. And what is it called?
One is The Loneliest Number.
One. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had that.
Like, one is the lonely, like the song, which may or may not be in it. So it's a 5-minute short. It's a little, passion project I did with my mother who wrote it. And, we'll see. I just did it for fun. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, honestly, but it's nice that we're talking about it. I don't know.
No, it's great. It's great. It's so exciting.
All right. Yeah. Well, listen, folks, you can find, now you know about Augie's new film, but you can find Quincy Rose's new film, this indie comedy. I almost wanted to call it a rom-com, but it's not quite for reasons I can't say. But it is a comedy, and there is references to romance, but it's not a rom-com.
Yeah.
It's The Narcissists. It's you can get it now on iTunes or Vimeo for sure, or you can also order it at a great price at MrMedia.com. If you are watching on Mr. Media, below the video, you'll see the art for the cover of the film. Click on that. It'll take you probably maybe to Amazon, maybe to iTunes, and you can order it there. And it'll be a great price, of course. Quincy, where do you want to send people for a website for more information?
Well, oh gosh, I think it's called The Narcissists Film or the narcissistmovie.com. You know what? You can go to QuincyRoseFilms.com. If I can look it up real quickly, that would be great.
But it's also on Instagram. You can follow
us on Instagram. But again, I don't know the handle right now. I'm just blanking on all of the handles.
Oh, here, wait, let me see.
This is happening in real life in real time, folks.
If you go to the narcissistmovie.com, that's its own website. That'll get you to anywhere you need to go.
Okay.
But I also want to say that the film is out via Gravitas Ventures worldwide. And if you're in a part of the world where they don't allow you to watch the film because there's no subtitles in your language, and or a place like Australia where it must be rated by their rating system in order to be on certain platforms, for example, iTunes, then you can go to Vimeo, or anybody, even in America where you can see it elsewhere. You can go to vimeo.com and put in the Narcissists. It's plural, and you'll find it there for rent or purchase. And yeah, it's available on Blu-ray and DVD on multiple platforms, or going through Mr. Media's platform. And it is on like most platforms like Google, Xbox, PlayStation, iTunes, Amazon, wherever. And then like hundreds I'd never even heard of that are in like Canada or here. They're like things I'd never even heard of. Okay. And, hopefully eventually it'll be on some of the other platforms as well, as we branch out. But it's like a period, you go like a certain amount of time and then you put it out there. But the narcissistmovie.com or QuincyRoseFilms.com, any of these places will take you through and put you in touch with our social media platforms, etc. So, right. Yeah.
And Augie, I should ask you, can people find you on the web, on social media? Are you out there?
I'm on the web, yo. Instagram, Duke Augie. It's my name backwards because I couldn't log into my last one because I screwed that up. So it's Duke Augie, and then Augie Duke for everything else except for Instagram. So yeah, excellent. I'm there. I'm out there in the world.
That's right.
You might be a little bit out there, but not like totally out there.
Like full blown out there. Thank you for having us so much.
Yeah, Bob, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be on Mr. Media again, and it's always a awesome time talking to you about this stuff. So thank you. Yeah.
Of course, Augie. Nice to meet you. Quincy, great to have you guys back. And thanks for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, your whole focus should be right on the camera.
Okay.
Especially because they're not going to see me asking the questions.
Quincy, you should do that the whole time.
Oh.
All right.
We're going to miss you. I think you should be. I think you look fucking awesome, but whatever. We'll miss your face.